Hello, my name is Sorensen. Thanks for joining me in this video. Let's go for a wee walk down to the water. Over the years, I've spent quite a bit of time on the road as a touring musician, and I've worked on recording projects in various cities, including spells in London and New York. However, I always knew that I could only really cope with being away for 2 or 3 months at a time before I had to get back to rural Scotland so that I could reset my brain. Although it's been professionally inconvenient for me, I learned early on that I couldn't cope with city life, at least not on a full-time basis. I find the noise, the concentration of buildings, and the sheer number of people eventually start to feel oppressive and debilitating. Of course, hanging out in a major city can definitely be fun and productive. But in my case, it eventually starts to make me feel anxious. And I know that I have to get back to the relative peace and quiet of my home and the calming sight of open green horizons. I'm based in the southern borderlands, an expanse of farms, forests, rivers and estates, with dozens of little towns and villages scattered throughout. One of those little towns is a place called Galashiels, where I live. My house is plonked right in the middle of the town. However, I can still see those green horizons from my windows. And a 30-minute walk in any direction will see me smack dab in the middle of a little forest or a farm. Although I get homesick for the Scottish borders, whenever I'm away working and playing music. I actually crave a more extreme form of seclusion when I've spent too much time there. My family come from the Orkney Islands, to the north of the country. So the sight, sound, and smell of the Atlantic Ocean crashing angrily against the rocky Orcadian coastline is in my DNA. For my general well-being, I need a regular dose of that unique island experience. So I try to head up at least once a year. I'm actually in the Orkney Islands right now. But unusually, I've decided to come up in August for a little trip. While the weather is reasonably calm and pleasant. I haven't seen the place at this time of year for a very long time. It's nice. Usually I'm up here in the middle of winter, when it's dark and the weather can be best described as brutal, and the North Atlantic Ocean is at its most violent. Even in winter, when the rain and wind are painful against my face, I like to walk down to the beach each day. Luckily, this isn't winter, and since it's quite a nice day, I thought I'd get the camera out and bring you with me as I make my way down to the ocean. Over the water there is the distinctive outline of Hoy, one of the 70 islands that make up the Orkney Islands. Right now, we're on the Orkney mainland. This is the largest island, and on either side are the two largest towns, Stromness and Kirkwall. Since most of the population live on this island, it's no surprise that the planes from down south come to the airport over near Kirkwall, and then smaller planes fly out from there to the other islands. Also, the boats from Aberdeen stop off in Kirkwall, as do hundreds of giant ocean liners every year, packed full of international tourists. On this side of the island, the daily boats from Scrabster on the north of Scotland berth in Stromness harbour, packed with passengers and produce. Although I've spent time in the Orkney Islands every year of my life, I've maybe only set foot on a dozen of those 70 islands in all of that time. However, I've always thought the islands up here have really cool and interesting sounding names. North and South Ronaldsay, Westray, Sandy, Rousey, Ede, Papa Westray, Shappensey, Stronsey, Flotta, Egglesey, Grahamsey, Bury, Broch of Bursey, and Papa Stronsey, among many others. The bit of water down there between the Orkney mainland and Hoy heads out to the North Sea and the Atlantic. But in the other direction, it heads back into Scapa Flow. Some of you may recognize the name Scapa Flow, as it's played an important role in the naval aspects of both world wars. At the end of World War I, when the Germans had surrendered, 74 ships of their Imperial Navy's High Seas Fleet were interned at Scapa Flow, while they waited on a decision about their future in the Peace Treaty of Versailles. After 7 months of waiting around, the German Rear Admiral in charge gave his captains an order to scuttle the entire fleet. Because the negotiation period for the treaty had lapsed without a conclusion. However, it turns out that he had not been kept informed that there had actually been a last-minute extension given to the negotiations. Although the Royal Navy were able to beach some of the German battleships and destroyers before they sank, at least 50 of the ships were successfully scuttled and sank to the bottom of Scapa Flow. Most of the ships were later raised in the 20s as part of an enormous salvaging operation. But there are still some ships down there. As far as World War II is concerned, it became clear that the naval defences around Orkney were not sufficient when a German U-boat sank the Royal Navy battleship HMS Royal Oak at her moorings in Scapa Flow. Apparently, the sub had sneaked into Scapa Flow between the Orkney mainland and one of the little islands. Sunk the Royal Oak and then snuck out the other side, past the island of Hoy, and then out into the vast Atlantic. This was in 1939, and at that point Winston Churchill was still First Lord of the Admiralty. So he was the political head in charge of the Royal Navy. To counter any further sneak attacks, he ordered the construction of permanent barriers between the Orkney mainland, several small islands, and South Ronaldsay. It took a while to build, and the barriers were not officially opened until 1945, a few days after the war had actually ended. Anyway, the Churchill barriers are still very much in use today, and an essential part of life on these islands. Because they link the Orkney mainland with South Ronaldsay. which is the fourth largest island and the home to the third largest settlement of people in the village of St. Margaret's Hope. On the right there is our local graveyard, where multiple generations of my family are buried. To preempt any potential attacks from the continuity police, I should point out that the beach footage I've used at the end of this video was actually shot yesterday, which was a beautiful, calm day with blue skies. I wanted to use that footage because the tide was out at the time and the rocks looked really cool and weird. Over there you can see the Hamnival, which sails each day from Scrabster on the very north of the Scottish mainland to Stromness, the second largest town in the Orkney Islands. Although the crossing is quick, I can never be bothered getting the train all the way up to Thurso on the northern tip of Scotland. I get fidgety after a while and like to pace about. So being stuck on a train for that length of time is just too long for me. Instead, I usually get the train from Edinburgh to Aberdeen. And then take the Hjaltland or frothy up to Kirkwall, which is the largest town in the Orkney Islands. Although the crossing takes around 7 hours, it's a pretty big boat, so I can pace about as much as I like. I love these rocks. They look really cool to me. I hope you've enjoyed this little walk down to the beach. Thanks for joining me.